Imagine stepping into a brand new multi-million-dollar metro station in Mumbai, gleaming on the outside, promising the future of modern India. But as the first monsoon rains hit, water gushes in, transforming the platforms into a flooded mess. Stranded commuters, ankle-deep in water, stare in disbelief. Social media explodes with videos of drenched walls, malfunctioning escalators, and soaked ticket booths. Meanwhile, officials scramble to explain, blaming untimely rains, as if Mumbai's legendary monsoon had suddenly become a freak event. How can the world's fastest-growing major economy, aiming for global superpower status, keep falling into the same trap? Why do India's most ambitious urban dreams seem to unravel at the first sign of rain? And, perhaps most alarmingly, what does it reveal about the risks facing hundreds of millions living in India's booming cities? Today we're going to dissect India's urban flood crisis, a perfect storm where rapid economic growth, climate change, and political inertia collide. Stick with us as we explore why modern infrastructure seems so vulnerable, why the promises of smarter, safer cities remain just that, and what's really at stake for India's future. Let's rewind for a minute. India's urban story is, on the surface, a remarkable tale of aspiration. Since the turn of the century, India's cities have ballooned, driven by tech booms, opportunities, and the hopes of a rising middle class. About 40% of the country's 1.4 billion people now live in urban areas, a number that's growing by over 10 million every year. Some experts estimate the urban share is closer to 50%. Every year, new highways, towers, bridges, and metro lines spring up to connect sprawling urban landscapes, all in the name of progress. Walk through a metro station in Athens and you'll see ancient pottery, reminders of a civilization that shaped the West. Step into Moscow's underground and you're greeted by chandeliers, marble columns, and murals depicting Soviet glory, all odes to a vision of the future. Now visit Mumbai's newest metro station, and you might encounter the unexpected, a 21st century flood just days after opening. This isn't just embarrassing, it's a symbol of a wider truth. The hard reality is that, beneath the glitter, India's urbanization has raced ahead with little heed to climatic, environmental, or social realities. As the economy sprints towards being the fourth largest on Earth, the lived experience for millions remains one of chronic infrastructure failures. Flooded metros and waterlogged streets in world-class cities are no longer freak accidents. They're annual rituals, met with shrugs rather than shock. This phenomenon isn't limited to Mumbai. In May, Delhi suffered its own deluge as underpasses became rivers and traffic ground to a halt. Bengaluru, India's premier tech hub, was paralyzed by unseasonal rains, triggering massive economic losses. Chennai, Kochi, Kolkata, the list goes on. Every monsoon, cities across India seem to drown, leaving behind questions, chaos, and a mounting bill. But what if the real crisis is still invisible? What if these spectacular failures are merely the tip of an iceberg, a warning about deeper systemic flaws in India's urban approach? Let's break down the facts. First, urban flooding in India is neither new nor unpredictable. Records show that over 40 million hectares of land are susceptible to riverine and flash floods. Of this, 8 million hectares, roughly the size of Austria, are inundated every single year. In 2015, Chennai's catastrophic floods caused damages estimated at $2.5 billion, displacing hundreds of thousands and submerging large swaths of the city. Bengaluru's built-up areas have surged by 584% between 1973 and 2017, consuming lakes and wetlands that once acted as natural buffers. Chennai's wetlands alone shrunk by 31% in less than 3 decades, directly correlating with increased flood risks. Climate change is throwing gasoline on this fire. As Dr. Anjal Prakash, lead IPCC author, warns, climate change is exacerbating urban vulnerabilities, requiring urgent adaptation measures. Mumbai's monsoon is now more erratic, unpredictable in timing and intensity. Kochi has seen a 6% increase in average annual rainfall in just a century, pushing its creaking drainage systems to the brink. And yet, despite the data and the lived experience, Indian cities keep repeating the same mistakes. A Niti Aayog report on urban planning starkly notes, as the state and city governments continue to solve urban issues in a firefighting mode, urban areas struggle to achieve basic services for all. India's urban story may be lauded globally or suffer irreversible damages in the next 10-15 years, depending on corrective policy measures and actions taken at the beginning of this decade. Millions are already paying the price. Here's where the drama deepens. India's urban population isn't just about IT professionals and office workers. Behind the scenes, a huge informal workforce, often living in fragile, informal settlements, provides the essential services that keep these cities running. Yet, these populations are the most vulnerable. They receive little support, have scanty legal rights, and lack basic access to water, sanitation, and healthcare. When floods strike, they're the first to suffer, losing homes, livelihoods, and sometimes their lives. This is a bigger crisis than most realize. Urban data in India is notoriously unreliable. Many urban residents live in settlements that are invisible to official statistics. As a result, policy and infrastructure planning regularly miss the people who need help the most. The roots of the problem run deep. India's state governments have largely abdicated urban planning to real estate developers and private contractors, whose goals rarely align with sustainable, equitable growth. As Dr. Aramar Ravi from the Indian Institute for Human Settlements laments, urban planning in India needs a paradigm shift towards climate-resilient and inclusive development. But instead of visionary city plans, we see a patchwork of short-term fixes, often dictated by political expediency or the interests of construction lobbies. Here's an eye-opening number. A 2021 report revealed that, against a requirement of 12,000 urban planners at all levels, fewer than 4,000 posts existed, and half of those remained vacant. The result? Key decisions are made without technical expertise, or simply outsourced to developers. The outcome is painfully obvious. Projects that routinely ignore environmental realities, like the new Mumbai metro station built without adequate waterproofing, or highways that choke waterways and block drainage. Meanwhile, ambitious government schemes like the Smart Cities mission, launched with much fanfare, have struggled to deliver. Each smart city receives around $25 million for infrastructure upgrades. Yet years later, no Indian city can credibly claim to have solved its flood problem. In reality, much of this money gets funneled into highly visible projects, flyovers, surveillance cameras, decorative lighting, rather than the unglamorous but vital work of drainage, water management, and environmental restoration. Sunita Narain, director of the Center for Science and Environment, cuts to the heart of the problem. We need decentralized wastewater treatment systems to reduce pollution and improve water security in cities. Yet most cities continue to rely on outdated centralized systems, big, fragile, and easily overwhelmed. Some may ask, why not just build better infrastructure? Here's the catch. The scale of investment needed is colossal, an estimated $490 billion by 2030. Yet local governments, which should be the engines of urban renewal, control only 30% of their budgets. The rest depends on handouts from state and central governments, which are often delayed or tied to specific political priorities. As a result, maintenance is neglected, and new investments are skewed toward headline-grabbing projects rather than the slow, essential work of building resilience. The environmental cost is staggering. Bengaluru's lakes are being filled for real estate development, turning the city's famous water bodies into landfill. Unplanned urbanization is destroying Bengaluru's lakes and increasing flood risk, warns Dr. T.V. Ramachandra of the Indian Institute of Science. Chennai's wetlands, once nature's sponge, are paved over for IT parks and malls. Across India, green spaces are vanishing at record speed, while concrete and asphalt create urban heat islands and worsen air pollution. Dr. Shirish Sinha from TERI argues that green infrastructure can play a vital role in mitigating urban heat islands and improving air quality. But the reality on the ground tells a different story. Parks and stormwater drains lose out to quick money from real estate. Even when disaster strikes, the official response is often to blame the weather. After each deluge, authorities point to unseasonal rains or climate change, sidestepping the fact that Indian cities have always received intense monsoons. The difference now is that natural buffers have vanished, and the man-made infrastructure is simply not up to the task. This is not just a story of poor design, but of deliberate neglect and misplaced priorities. The consequences are felt hardest by the most vulnerable. Forget the gleaming ads. Hundreds of millions in Indian cities live in informal or underserviced neighborhoods, lacking the basic protections that wealthier districts take for granted. When the rains come, these areas flood first, and recovery, if it comes at all, is slow and uneven. Still, as billions are poured into city building, the fundamental question lingers. Can India's urban planners and policymakers break the vicious cycle before it's too late? Or will the dream of modern, resilient Indian cities keep slipping underwater, drowned by the very ambitions that fuel their growth. So what would it take for a city like Mumbai, not just to survive, but to thrive in the age of climate uncertainty and relentless urban expansion? And are there bold solutions ready to be seized, or will business as usual keep repeating the same old disaster script? The answers might surprise you, because the race to save India's cities is already underway, quietly rewriting the rules of urban survival. Let's look ahead. What could India's future hold if it stays on the current path, or if it chooses to change course? Imagine the next 10 years. By 2035, over 600 million people could be living in India's cities. If present trends continue, every monsoon might bring yet another headline. Historic floods paralyze metro, millions affected. Streets could transform into rivers overnight, with buses stranded, power lines knocked out, and the most vulnerable, those living in informal settlements, bearing the brunt. According to Dr. Anjal Prakash, lead author for the IPCC, climate change isn't only a warning, it's already here, intensifying urban disasters every season. The numbers are staggering. 40 million hectares, roughly the size of California, are at risk of flooding in India, with 8 million hectares inundated every single year. Bengaluru, a city once known for its lakes, witnessed a 584% increase in built-up areas in just 4 decades. Chennai lost nearly a third of its wetlands since the 90s. These aren't just statistics, they're warnings written into the land. If unchecked, we could see more stories like the 2015 Chennai floods, where damages topped $2.5 billion, and thousands found themselves homeless overnight. The economic impact is relentless. Businesses shutter for weeks, infrastructure erodes, and the cycle of rebuilding drains much-needed resources. The cost is not just in rupees, it's in lost opportunity, broken livelihoods, and fractured communities. But this is not an inevitable future. India stands at an urban crossroads. The crisis could fuel innovation and bring about new opportunities. Cities around the world have turned disaster into a catalyst for change. Could India do the same? Urban resilience is more than just concrete and drains. It's a mindset shift, a rethinking of what cities are meant to be. Dr. Aramar Revi, director of the Indian Institute for Human Settlements, puts it this way: India's urban planning must transform, focusing on climate resilience and inclusive growth, or the costs will be counted in human lives. Let's explore what could happen if India mounts a bold response. With decentralized, nature-based solutions and smarter governance, a very different scene is possible. Imagine cities where wetlands are restored as natural sponges, absorbing excess rainfall, where green spaces double as flood buffers, where drainage systems, once clogged and ancient, are now data-driven and responsive, tied into real-time warning systems. We could see new metro stations in Mumbai or Delhi boasting not just about sleek design, but about their resilience to monsoon deluges, dry, safe, and prepared. Revenue from thriving urban economies could be reinvested into infrastructure, benefiting all citizens, not just the privileged few. The invisible millions in informal settlements could finally have a voice in city planning, helping design solutions that work for everyone. Yet such transformation demands political will and public pressure. The gap between aspiration and reality is still vast. Indian urban local bodies control just 30% of their own revenue, far less than global peers. Outdated governance, a chronic shortage of urban planners, less than a third of the posts filled, holds cities back. This isn't just misfortune, it's a matter of priorities. And then, there's the role of technology. Green infrastructure, like permeable pavements and urban forests, can cool cities and absorb floodwaters. Decentralized wastewater treatments, as Sunita Narain advocates, reduce pollution and reclaim precious water. Digital flood warning systems, like those recommended by Dr. Ashwin Mahajan, could provide precious hours for evacuation and response. But perhaps the most radical change must occur in mindset. For decades, urban planning has been outsourced to real estate developers and contractors, with little regard for the lived experience of everyday people. It's time to put communities at the center, to build with them, not just for them. What does this mean for you, the viewer? Whether you live in Kolkata or Kansas, there are lessons here that ripple far beyond India's borders. Cities everywhere are grappling with climate risks, aging infrastructure, and rapid growth. The Indian experience is a warning and a laboratory. If you're an urban resident, ask, is my city prepared for the next big storm? Do I know where my nearest flood shelter is? Who decides how my neighborhood is built or protected? Voices matter. Public pressure, through petitions, local meetings, and social media, can push city leaders to act before the next disaster. If you're a policymaker, engineer, or entrepreneur, the message is clear. Invest in resilience, not just expansion. Every rupee spent on green infrastructure or early warning systems saves multiples in disaster relief. Dr. Shirish Sinha from TERI reminds us, nature-based solutions aren't a luxury, they're a necessity for survival in the urban age. Even those living far from India can learn from its challenges. Urban flooding is a global phenomenon, seen in New York, London, Jakarta. The solutions being debated in Indian cities, restoring wetlands, integrating technology, empowering local communities, are relevant everywhere. So, where do we go from here? The answer to our original question, can India build climate-resilient cities before disaster becomes the new normal? The answer is, it must. The stakes are too high for complacency. The technology exists. The knowledge exists. What's needed is the conviction to implement, scale, and sustain bold reforms. It starts with governance. Cities need empowered local bodies with resources and skilled planners. This means filling vacant posts, investing in urban training, and holding leaders accountable for decisions that shape millions of lives. Next, it's about reimagining infrastructure. Not flashy projects for ribbon cutting, but systems designed for real-world extremes. Drainage should be mapped, monitored, and maintained. Floodplains must be protected, not paved over. Wetlands and lakes, often dismissed as wastelands, are the secret guardians of urban safety. They must be restored, not erased. And crucially, India must address its invisible millions. The urban poor are the first to suffer from failed systems, but they can also be the most creative problem solvers if included in decision-making. Cities that listen, adapt, and care for their most vulnerable are the ones that thrive. The clock is ticking. The Niti Aayog's own report warns that the next 10 to 15 years will determine whether India's urban story is lauded globally or whether it ends in irreversible damage. Every flood, every failed project is a wake-up call, but every innovative solution is also a beacon of hope. Perhaps the greatest secret, hidden in plain sight, is that there is no single magic bullet, no metro or smart city app that can solve it all. Urban resilience is built gradually, from 1,000 small decisions, protecting a neighborhood pond, enforcing drainage laws, pushing for climate literacy in schools, demanding that every infrastructure project passes the rain test, not just in theory, but in practice. Let's return to the metro station that became a water world. It's not just an embarrassing headline, it's a symbol, a reminder that the sheen of economic progress means little if drowned by the next monsoon. The challenge is not unique to Mumbai or even to India, but the response will be watched by the world. This is a call to action for citizens, leaders, and storytellers. If you found this story eye-opening, don't let it end here. Share this video, start a conversation in your community, ask your city leaders tough questions, and if you see a wetland, a park, or even a drain being neglected, speak up. Urban resilience is everyone's business, because the future is not yet written. With bold choices and collective will, disaster need not become the new normal. India, and cities everywhere, can turn the tide. The next chapter could be one of sustainable, inclusive, and climate-safe urban life. It's up to us, starting today. Thanks for watching. If you want to see more deep dives into the big issues shaping our world,